5 ways artificial intelligence will impact you, the church creative. If you're serving as a creative in the church, you've probably heard a lot about artificial intelligence. Midjourney and Dall-E were the two that really kind of drove the visual side of things. Now ChatGPT is blowing the doors off of everything because of its chat text coding type of influence and the way that it can respond to inputs and just give really remarkable results. Last week, I talked about what I consider to be the biggest problem or the biggest threat for the church communicator. Artificial intelligence isn't grumpy. If you're a grumpy creative, it's going to be hard for you to combat artificial intelligence. Now there's a tool that people can use that's frankly a lot easier to use. They don't have to worry about being judged for their decisions or their requests, and they get heard. That's a pretty big problem. So obviously my recommendation is adjust your attitude. If you're difficult to work with, make the changes that you need to in the way that you approach different people. Now, that's mostly last week's video, but I want to get to 5 different things that I see coming down the road, and I think you need to pay attention to them. The first point here really is that your opinion doesn't matter. And I don't say that to be dismissive, because there are some legitimate concerns that exist with this technology. Complaining has never changed anything. What I'm starting to see is artists putting these like petitions together or like protests on Instagram. Guys, it's just not going to do anything. Your complaints and your issues with artificial intelligence, they're just not going to move the needle. They're not going to make an impact, and they're not going to change the technology, and they're not going to change the trajectory of adoption. So once you get past that, now what can you do? That's the second point. You're going to need to come to a conclusion here. We can't just be angsty on the sidelines and then hope that everything blows over. Artificial intelligence will absolutely, unquestionably be woven into the day-to-day work of American work culture. So you got to figure out what you believe about it. You got to figure out where you stand. One of the things for me, and I don't have a clear answer here. So if you're hoping that, oh, point 2 comes with a really easy answer that I can just adopt, that's not the way this works, unfortunately. The place where I wrestle most is in this idea of us being created in God's image and us being created to create. When God created us, he chose to create us in his image. So what happens when we create things? What are the implications for me as a creative? For me as one who creates? Should I be offloading some of the work that I'm doing to this robot that is not made in the image of God? Or should I be not doing that? That's the tension point for me. I feel comfortable using artificial intelligence writing prompts for me in terms of topics. What is it that creatives struggle with? I feel comfortable if I were to write that prompt into ChatGPT and then see the answers that it gives me. Creatives struggle with being jerks to their coworkers. Great. And then I will take that and run with it from my own experience, create my own content, reference my own backstory, you know, my time in the church, a situation where I was grumpy with a coworker and I wish that I hadn't said what I had said, those types of things. I feel like that's an appropriate line. Do I feel comfortable if a client comes to me and says, hey, I want you to make us a custom illustration? Do I feel comfortable going to ChatGPT and or to Midjourney and just typing in the prompt and trying to get artwork to then basically peddle over to this client? Absolutely not. I believe that it's my responsibility as an artist and as a creative to hone my craft. That's an act of worship for me. I need to lean into these skills and these gifts that God has given me. I want to hone them so that I can create work that honors him. That's a part of, for me, that's a part of my walk with God. So there's a tension. I think it's okay as a stimulator of ideas, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to be leveraging it to go further down the road. Other people are going to have totally different perspectives on that, and that's fine. But that's why point number 2 is what it is. You need to come to a conclusion where you feel peace about the use of artificial intelligence in what you do. The third thing is that you will absolutely lose work to artificial intelligence. There's going to be a tier of work that you're currently doing as a creative that you will no longer have to do. And I use that language intentionally. There was a season of my career as a designer where I was actually spending my time designing labels to go on the side of Rubbermaid bins in storage. We wanted a bunch of different label designs and different like subtypes. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it was a waste of my time. It felt like a waste of my time. And I just didn't enjoy the project. So if I can leverage something like artificial intelligence to just get that off my plate, that's going to be really helpful. The reality is that a lot of the work that we do in the church isn't exactly the most honed in towards the mission of the church. And so this is where something like artificial intelligence actually has the potential to be a real help to us. It's similar to templates, to be honest with you, in that there's not a lot of custom design work necessary. We just need the problem solved, and we need to get it out of our to-do list so we can move on to stuff that will actually move the mission of the church forward. So that's the place where I think AI is going to steal a lot of jobs. And to be honest with you, I'm okay with it. The fourth one here, somewhat connected, a little bit more painful, but I think it's also very common and should be expected. AI will absolutely cost people jobs. Now, I don't mean somebody's going to come into your office and say, hey, we're going to fire you because of the robot. That's not what I mean. What I mean is somebody's going to leave your team and they're going to make the decision to not rehire that person because the volume of work that can get accomplished by fewer people. AI is going to speed up the creation process by a pretty dramatic amount. Think about copywriting. Think about writing ads. I don't know if you've ever written ads or even just written posts for social media. To think through and wordsmith is exhausting. It takes time. It takes skill. And to be able to go into a prompt and say, hey, write a post about such and such, I don't even know if I feel comfortable with that, to be honest with you, but I know a lot of organizations are going to be leveraging it that way. So yes, there's going to be decisions to not rehire roles because of the fact that we can go faster with fewer people. Here's the other side of that. This has happened every time technology has advanced in a significant way. For me personally, I resonate most with the transition from film to digital with photography. I was a student in college and that transition was happening. You could buy the point and shoots. And I remember when the first DSLR came out, my mind was blown. You're telling me I don't have to go into the dark room anymore, or I don't have to pay 12 bucks to get my film developed and then scan it on this scanner that cost me 150 bucks and then spend like 5 hours cleaning off the scan because there's all this dust. It's such a laborious process. The decision to switch to digital was like not even a thought for me, but there was so much anger around this transition. Eventually what happened? My favorite place to go in college was a film store. It went out of business. It's a bummer. I'm not rooting for anybody to go out of business. But you know what came in its place? An art store. It's bittersweet because I don't love the fact that there will be jobs that are lost. I don't love the fact that there will be large portions of industries that are cannibalized to this automation and this non-human contribution to work. But this keeps happening, and it will keep happening. It's going to keep happening every time technology makes a sizable shift forward. I don't love that anybody loses their job because of this, but it's a reality. And I feel like it needs to be brought up because otherwise we're going to be fearing this unknown. Call it what it is, lament the fact that that's real, and move on. And then the last here, what are we going to do to respond to this? So if you're a church creative and you're sitting here thinking to yourself, I'm doomed, what am I going to do? Well, there's a couple things. This happened several years ago when I was leading a creative team. I went to one of my designers and I said, hey, I want you to look at the Word Swag app in the App Store. Basically the app, you may have used it, you may still use it, but it was real trendy several years ago. Basically what the app does is it lets you write a word and then pick out of 25 different fonts and toss it on the background that you select, whether it's one of their stock ones, whether it's one that you upload. So essentially it's letting you create social posts in seconds to minutes. The app was like $2.99. So I'm telling my designer, look, I know you do freelance on the side. I just want to bring this to your attention because what's going to happen is more and more people are going to discover this app and they're going to replace you and your services with an app that's $2.99. So $50 for a slide or an image or whatever. I don't know what the rates were at the time, but now all of a sudden is no dollars. And so if your whole business is built off of the low-hanging fruit of an industry, technology is coming for you. And that's what we see with artificial intelligence right now. There is absolutely a space for experts, for very, very high-skilled people in all of these industries. Technology won't overcome all of that. So don't worry about the fact that there are low-hanging fruit elements of your job that are being taken and given away to artificial intelligence. Instead, focus on how you can be unique. Like I said in the last video, you really want to make sure that you're good to work with. I can think of somebody right now, a friend of mine. He's serving as a communications director at a church. Actually, he has a different role. He just moved up. But the senior pastor loves him. And he says regularly, you're the best comm person I've ever worked with. I love what you do. I never want to leave you, and I never want you to not be involved in comm. He's safe from AI. Why is he safe? because of who he is. He delivers on his promises. He's great to work with. When a last minute project comes up, he doesn't freak out at the senior pastor. He doesn't call him a moron. He's kind, he's gracious, he works hard, and he delivers. Artificial intelligence is not that. Artificial intelligence will regurgitate a solution to you when you give it a prompt. So when you have a good reputation, when you work hard, when you're good at positioning a message, when you're good at critical thinking and strategically solving problems, you are safe from the threat of artificial intelligence. And if anything, you're going to be asked, can you help us wield this tool more efficiently? So if you dismiss it and throw it out altogether, you're going to be a liability at some point, because this is a tool that's going to be getting integrated into the workflow of churches around the country. Develop an ethic around it, what you feel about it, what you think about it, where you feel comfortable. Is it stealing artists' work? Theologically, am I okay with it? Reconcile those things. Know that there will be projects lost. Know that there will be jobs lost, and rehires may not be as common. But if you spend your energy focusing on what you bring to the table that's unique, strategy, user interface, you're going to be just fine.